to Common Sense Matters. This is Helen Stapleton. I'm the secretary of the Franklin County Democratic Party, and we do this show every first Monday of the month at 10 o'clock, and we're happy that y'all are here with us. Today we're going to be talking about agriculture, and we have a local farmer calling in right now. So let's answer the phone and see what he has to say. Okay, sorry. What do I have to hit? Oh goodness. Sorry, y'all. We're having some technical difficulties here. All right.
I'll have to call back.
Okay. All right. Well, let's hope he'll call back. In the meantime, I want to advertise that Winchester has an amazing ballroom dancing class. It made me think about it because Big Chuck was playing that Billy Joel song, and we danced to that last Saturday. She was her name is Frances Arthur from Manchester, and she teaches ballroom at Let's Make a Note, which is right on the square every Saturday. And last time we did East Coast Swing, and that was one of the songs that we danced to, was that Billy Joel song. So we are hoping that our guest will call in just a little bit, but we're going to be talking about agricultural policy under the Trump administration. I know that we're only about 5 months into it, but a lot has happened. So we are being joined right now by our guest, Robert McKee, and he was born and raised in Alto and has a long history with agriculture, and he's going to be our guest today. Hi, Robert. How are you?
Hey, Helen. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good, and it's so kind of you to call. I know that you are home with a newborn, and that your time is very precious, and the fact that you're taking some time to talk with us about agriculture, when you've got all the demands of a newborn and your business, it's really sweet of you. So thank you for that. And why don't you first just tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with agriculture and where you went to school, blah, 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 just so we know who you are.
Okay, well, you gave me an introduction. I actually grew up between Murfreesboro and Suwannee, and my family's farm is in Alto, which is where I live now.
Gotcha.
And come from a pretty agrarian family, but forestry and agriculture are how we made a living for a long time. And I went to Auburn University and got a bachelor's degree in agronomy and soils, and stayed on to get a master's degree in plant and weed science, focusing on forages for beef cattle. Mm-hmm. And then I went over to Athens, Georgia, the University of Georgia, to get a PhD in animal and dairy science with a focus on pasture-based beef cattle production, meat science, specifically large ruminants. I got a lot of ruminant nutrition and microbiology education in that process as well.
Wonderful. And I had no idea you had your PhD. That's amazing. And so what are you doing now? Or what have you been doing? What have you been doing with your degree?
Live on my family's farm. It's this piece of it's 100 acres. We got a small herd of cattle that I'm trying to grow. Do hay as well for them, and then we lease about 50 acres of it for row crops.
Okay, and you got started on your Herefords with my husband's Herefords, huh? You bought your first Herefords from him.
Yeah, from y'all.
Yeah.
And, they're such docile animals.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Having those cows around, they're so nice. And my brother is my partner in this operation, and he's got 3 girls, and it's nice knowing you can have little kids around them and you don't have to worry.
Right. And so how old is your son now? Is he 2 months yet, or only 1 month?
He'll be 3 weeks this week. So
oh, God, really newborn. Okay.
Yeah.
and you're hoping he'll follow in the footsteps, huh?
We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't want to force them into it, but
right.
There's something about this lifestyle that was very attractive to me.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to get back here and do what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Mostly is, in theory it was going to be a retirement gig, but just came about 30 some odd years early.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, the context for our show is changes under the Trump administration with farm policy, and anyone who wants to weigh in can call in. Our number is 967-7471. But so does your farm rely on any funding or grants from the USDA? I know for us at least, when we have drought years, the USDA will send us small payments because we're having to pay so much more for hay and things like that. Does your farm get any type of grants like that from the USDA?
Yes, we get drought dollars. We rely.
Okay, hang on, Robert. You might want to move to where you get better reception because you're coming in kind of garbled right now.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Now we hear you better.
Yeah, Alto's a hard place to get good service.
I know.
We do get drought dollars. I don't think I would say we rely on that money. The lease ground kind of pays the bills, pays the taxes and the insurance on the farm, and then the cattle side of things is sort of, right now it's when you're growing a herd, it's hard to make any money, but it's putting everything you can get back into the operation. But it is a nice chunk of money that can help pay for things. But we don't rely on that. That certainly wasn't part of the initial accounting when we were trying to figure out if this was going to be feasible or not to do this. I do have a EQIP grant, which back in March I thought was going to get rescinded because of the new administration.
Okay, let's back up. Let's tell people what an EQIP grant is, because we got one of those too back in 2015, and that's back when you could count on the government to honor their promises. So an EQIP grant is from the Natural Resources Conservation Services, and that's a division of the USDA, and they pay farmers or help farmers to put in improvements on their land that will help with soil preservation, soil quality, keeping fencing cattle out of creeks, things like that. So
water quality is a big part of EQIP funding.
Yeah, so it doesn't pollute the next farm next to you. So in our example, for example, they paid 80% and we paid 20% of, I think all in all, it ended up costing about $18,000 to put in a bunch of new fencing to keep the cattle out of the creek and to put in waterers. And we had to document every expense, for wire, for posts, for all that. There was no waste, fraud, and abuse. We had to show receipts for everything that we spent on labor and materials and everything. We had to put up the whole amount, and then when it was finished, they sent inspectors. They made sure that the work was done properly. Again, no waste, fraud, or abuse. And then after they had looked at all the receipts and looked at the work that we had done, then they paid us the remaining 80%. And we would never have been able to have made those improvements without that grant. There's no way we could sell enough beef to pay for that. So it was a lifesaver for us, and I know a lot of other farms rely on that lifeline. So tell us, so that was our experience with it, and it was a really good experience. And again, there was no waste, fraud, or abuse, and everything was very carefully monitored. So tell us about what you did with an EQIP grant.
So I got funding to put in a single electrified fence down to split my pasture in half, and then a water line along with it. So currently I only have one water trough, and so moving the animals around is a little tricky because I still have to give them access to this one trough. So I talked to the NRCS agent and was...
And that's the USDA office that's based out of the post office building in Winchester, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And was asking about putting in something for prescribed grazing, so being able to... So right now, I'm finally getting some hay cut this morning, which is amazing. It's been so wet. I'm not complaining about it raining. I'm not complaining about rain ever, but it's nice to finally get a little break for the rain to get some hay put up. So this back pasture where they're cutting hay this morning is It's going to be split down the middle, and it'll allow me to basically limit graze those pastures or those paddocks with my animals. And so I could say graze a very small portion of it and then cut hay off the rest of it.
And this is going to improve your soil. It's regenerative farming, right? It's going to make your fields more sustainable and stay fertile for the long run, right?
Correct. That's a lot of research has shown that grazing, some people call it monograzing, prescribed grazing, intensively managed pastures. There's a lot of different terms for this process, but you're basically mimicking what wild ruminant herds, topically the American bison herds would do in the Midwest plains. It'd be a massive mob of animals would move through and just wipe out all the grass in one area and then just keep moving. And so on a much smaller scale, that's what we're doing.
Right.
And what happens is you concentrate the manure and the urine in one area, but you also trample a lot of the grass. So you're trampling. The animals aren't necessarily using it, but you're putting a lot of biomass down on the ground. And you're kind of like, it's almost like you're mowing your lawn. And the more you mow it, the faster it'll grow.
Right. And this is keeping you from having to put all kinds of chemical fertilizers and lime and all that on your fields, right?
It will prolong the fertility of my pastures. I'm still going to probably have to spread manure and spread lime on a decade schedule or so. What it really helps with is weed control, because you're almost forcing those animals to either eat or trample the weeds of the undesirable species. Right. And you're promoting growth of the species you want, your grass and your clovers, the things that you really want, the ones that will outcompete the weeds.
Right. And so, in other words, the summary is that this is a good thing for the land, for your cattle. It's a win-win, and it's being facilitated by this USDA EQIP grant. And and how much? And you've already put up your share of it?
I have not. So I had a back injury this fall, and that kind of put things on hold. And then this spring, I had recovered from my back injury, and then the NRCS agent called and said, "Hey, the funding is a little iffy right now. Don't do anything, because I don't know if I'll be able to pay you for any of your materials or your labor if you build this fence and put in their water line."
So consider your. Sorry. Go ahead.
Kind of got put on the back burner. It's still in the back of my mind. Something I was eventually going to do, but like you said, selling enough beef to pay for that amount of infrastructure is almost impossible. Right. Especially the water line, which is the real limitation. To being able to graze way back there at the back, far away from this existing water infrastructure.
Right. So consider yourself lucky that you aren't halfway through, because currently there are farmers all across the country who are halfway through that process. They've put up all their money and their work and their materials, and the government is not coming through on their end, and they are left holding the bag. And I feel really, do you know anyone who's in that situation personally? I've been seeing all sorts of videos on YouTube of farmers going, "We just put in all these hoop houses or blah, 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 and now the funding is frozen by Doge or whoever." Do you know anyone who's in that position?
I don't know anybody personally, but the guy, the NRCS, did say, I've got a couple of farmers now that I owe money to, but I can't pay them because the money's frozen. So, don't put yourself in that position.
Right. Yeah. It's horrible. And most farmers are operating on a razor thin margin, and one season of being out that funding, it can do them in. It's really horrible what this current administration is doing to farmers. All right. So my other question: did you have anything more you wanted to say about the EQIP thing?
No, I think it's a wonderful program. Obviously, I studied a lot of pasture and grazing management in school, and I worked alongside and know a lot of the people that developed these programs, and I just think it's a great system.
Right. Okay, another thing I wanted to ask you about, do you yourself or know any farmers who are being affected by the current administration's ag policy on tariffs, cutting SNAP, cutting USAID assistance? Do you know any farmers who are like, well, what are we supposed to grow this year now that, I mean, do you have any experience with that, with you or people you know?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the USDA SNAP benefits at farmers markets, where a lot of farmers markets will actually double the SNAP dollars for those beneficiaries. So you can use your SNAP benefit at farmers market, and your money is doubled at that market. And our local farmers market is part of that program, and so of course all of those people are affected. And I'm not sure. I need to talk to our market manager and see how
You're talking about the main Franklin County Farmers Market that's on the Boulevard in Winchester?
I'm talking about the South Cumberland Farmers Market.
Okay, right.
I'm pretty sure the Franklin County Farmers Market is part of that program as well. But I'm not sure how much of our sales are SNAP recipients or not.
So one of the other... Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
As far as tariffs are concerned, I had a pretty eye-opening conversation with my cousin, who's currently getting a PhD in ag economics at Oklahoma State University. He was home for spring break, and the tariffs had just come down, and we were looking at corn prices dropping below $4 a bushel, soybean prices pretty low as well. I can't remember the exact figures, and he said he knows a lot more about economics than I do. Obviously, he said that's going to be a significant hit to small farmers, to independent family-owned farmers. You're looking at people defaulting on loans, people losing their land basically, because we are so good at growing grain in this country that if we can't export any of it, the market will just be flooded and the price is going to plummet. So the retaliatory tariffs from other countries is a serious concern for the ag sector.
Yeah. And so you mentioned how they cut the program where SNAP benefits can be used at farmers markets or doubled at farmers markets. Another thing that DOGE and the Trump administration has cut is they had put in a really great program called Farm to Food Bank and Farm to School, where local farmers could sell their products directly to food banks and directly to school lunch programs. And that was like a win-win, because the farmers had no middleman. They could just sell their stuff directly to the schools and the food banks. And then the kids got good, healthy, locally grown food. And I mean, I can't think of anything wrong with that. And yet that was cut. So, there was no middleman. They were just selling directly. And, so they seem to want to cut off good, healthy, locally grown food to children and people on SNAP. And you're talking about not being able to export our grains. Well, a lot of our grains are bought through the SNAP program, and they want to cut SNAP as well. And so I can't see anything wrong with children eating.
Yeah. I feel that the DOGE program was, sort of a bull in a china shop approach. There was not a lot of tact with that.
No, these guys are coders.
Funding, and you would think, with as much as they touted their expertise or whatever, they would actually hire some experts and some people with some logic.
They're firing experts. They're firing experts.
Yeah.
So this is one thing I'm wondering. We own land down in Alto, not near as much as yours, but it seems like at least every 2 to 3 weeks, I go to my mailbox and there's a slick mailer from some real estate company offering to buy our farm. Do you get those in your mail?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Probably two a week.
Yeah. And so that's really stepped up lately. And I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Acre Trader. It's another one of these companies that buys up farms in default. Well, JD Vance helped launch that. And I don't mean to be conspiratorial, but I can't help but wonder. I mean, Trump is not from a long line of farmers. He's from a long line of real estate guys. JD Vance is starting this Acre Trader that facilitates buying up farms by big real estate companies. I can't help but think that these agricultural policies that they're putting in are going to break farmers and people, and small farmers only, really, and then they're going to end up having to sell their farms to these big concerns. Am I being a crazy conspiracy theorist, or do you think there might be something to that?
I've dealt with a lot of different administrations at universities, and I always was a little on the conspiracy theory side, but whenever I would voice my concerns, it was typically that whoever was in charge was not competent enough to come up with a scheme that complicated.
Okay. Well, I feel like Trump is probably more in line and on the side of real estate developers than he is on the side of family farmers. I don't think the man has ever put his hand in the dirt in his life. Yeah. Whereas he definitely knows real estate and has done a lot of real estate. And I just can't help but think that that's what side he's on. Yeah. And when farmers are desperate.
Land is a good place to invest your money. So safe investment. It's almost guaranteed to go up in value over time. If it's arable land, you can lease it and kind of it will pay for itself.
And we are losing farmland by the day. It's all going to these big developers, and it's turning into subdivisions. It's going to like these big agricultural conglomerations, like Cargill and Monsanto, and small farmers are the ones losing out. And I feel like cutting SNAP, cutting EQIP, all these things is helping the big guys and hurting the little guys. That's my thoughts. Anyway, so this is one of the questions I had for you. If you were head of the USDA and you had no obstacles, what would your fantasy agenda be? What would you do?
The USDA they do so much. There's, from food safety inspectors to plant disease inspection.
That's also being cut. They're cutting out the research on food disease, on plant diseases. They're cutting out food inspectors too. Just mentioning that. Okay, so go ahead.
I'll full disclosure. USDA grants paid for both of my graduate degrees. Both my research projects in grad school were funded by USDA grants. One was ARS. Maybe both were ARS. That's the Agricultural Research Service that really funds a lot of the research.
And what were you researching? What was that study? What was that study that the USDA was paying for?
So one was comparing some annual forages to perennial forages. For stocker cattle production. So stocker cattling is basically after the calf is weaned, it'll go on pasture for maybe 6 months or so, and then that's before it'll go to a feedlot or be put up on feed. That's called stockering. So we're looking at some annual forages versus perennial forages for that, and really looking at what's the most cost effective.
So you feel like it was useful and a good thing and practical thing to study.
Yeah, so I should say all of my research had had a very extension-based approach to things, and the Cooperative Extension Service, both in the state of Alabama and the state of Georgia, was big on research that was practical and applied. And so we would do things when a question would come up, like, oh, how do we approach this? It would always default back to, well, what would a farmer do?
Right.
We're going to do everything we can to make this a very accurate and valid scientific study, but we also want it to be applicable to the common farmer.
And you got to stay one step ahead of pests and diseases. This research it's not waste, fraud, and abuse. It's stuff that we need, right? I mean,
yeah.
If we're not one step ahead.
My PhD research in Georgia was looking at some annual forages for finishing beef cattle on pasture, whether with supplemental grain or just on forage alone. And if you look at the state of Georgia, they're much like Tennessee was, Middle Tennessee particularly, 50 years ago. They had a bunch of dairies that are all struggling to stay in business. And if you look at the infrastructure of a dairy farm, it's basically a very high output cattle operation. And so giving those producers that are struggling in the dairy market an option, as well as some of the economics of converting their dairy herd over to a beef herd, a beef finishing herd, was one of the goals of my PhD research. So being able to say, cut your dairy herd in half, start finishing beef cattle, and you can make a little bit more money and keep the farm afloat, keep the farm in the family, was definitely a goal.
Right.
And coming from a farm family that used to be in the dairy business and lost money milking cows for a long time before we got out, that was very close to home for me. It's trying to keep these folks in business.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so back to my question. I'm sorry, I think I got us off track. So if you were the head of the USDA tomorrow and you had no obstacles, what kind of programs would you like to see?
Well, obviously restoring the research dollars and then the SNAP benefits, especially at the farmers markets, where the people are getting highly nutritious foods, not just calorically dense foods, but really nutritious foods. And also, I can't stress enough how important relationships are in the world we live in, personal relationships with farmers and your neighbors. And farmers markets is a great place to meet the people that grow your food, the people that live down the road, people that, maybe they have a day job and then they have a couple dozen chickens in the back and they sell eggs on the side. That's the people that you're going to need to rely on when things don't go according to plan. And,
right.
When egg prices went up because of the bird flu, people were complaining about eggs that were $6 a dozen at the grocery store. And I thought, well, I've been paying $6 a dozen at the farmer's market for 2 years now. So
yeah, those didn't go up. Those didn't go up. They stayed the same. Yeah. I agree. So you would definitely prioritize small family local farms over big ag.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And again, that's my background, and I understand in the large scheme of things, there's a lot of population that just doesn't have any interest in farming. Very small population amount of the population is interested in farming, and that's probably one of the biggest issues going forward that agriculture faces is a labor shortage, sort of a agricultural brain drain, or not.
Well, another one of those things that DOGE and has cut since Trump has come into office is there were millions going towards training the next generation of farmers, because as you know, the average age of the American farmer right now is 58 years old. They don't all have children who want to take over. And so someone has to train up this next generation. There were all sorts of programs for training young farmers, and that all got cut. which I think
Yeah,
is very
and programs like
short-sighted.
4-H and FFA, Future Farmers of America, those are great programs. Things like community gardens at high schools and just any way to get kids involved in ag, whether it's showing cattle or sheep or
Yeah. So they've cut they've cut that out. They've cut the program for having farmers directly sell to school lunches and to farmers market. They have cut the people who they've cut tons of research. They have cut all these equip and conservation programs that help farmers do regenerative agriculture. They're rounding up people in ice raids and letting crops just rot in the fields. I mean, I just it just feels like there's an attack on agriculture to me. These
Yeah, and that's you mentioned the ice raids, but the transit worker labor policies are something that my brother worked on. He's an attorney, and trying to give people a legal way and farmers a legal way to get the crops harvested, and give those people a legal way to come to this country and make some money. It's kind of a shame that system is so backlogged and so convoluted that the illegal routes to that work are much more appealing than the legal ones.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we need those workers, and they need to be here legally. That's for sure. Well, Robert, we are out of time now. So if there's anything else you wanted to say before we go, here's your chance.
I'll say about the USDA as well. I'm reading this book called Nudge by Richard Taylor. He's a Nobel Prize-winning economist, and he's professor emeritus in economics at the University of Chicago. And his theory on nudge is basically the government or whatever employee or whatever larger body needs to basically promote good behavior by offering subtle incentives to do the right thing. So things like EQIP funding and SNAP benefits at farmers markets, encouraging people to buy nutritious foods instead of just calorically dense foods, encouraging farmers to do practices that are good for their soil, good for the water. Those are nudges, and those are things that the government needs to do.
And that will create habits. Like if you are on SNAP and you see, oh wow, all of a sudden the farmers market is accepting SNAP, when you never went to the farmers market before, or giving me double benefits for SNAP, you're going to start going to the farmers market, and that's going to become part of your habits, your daily habits, and that's such a great incentive. Why would you cut that away? I don't understand it.
Yeah.
That would.
And then just going back to what I said about community and those relationships. I mean, I'm not cutting my hay now. My another farmer that lives up the road is helping me with that because I don't have the haying equipment. I can't afford to buy haying equipment, and just having those relationships and having that phone number I could call. My cows got out and I need some folks to come help me put them back in.
Oh my God, our neighbors are so good at that. They're always calling us. You need that.
Farmers know that they rely on those relationships, and I think the further we get away from agriculture, the further that our society is going to come apart.
And when it's all just great big farms owned by corporations as opposed to families and local people, we need to do everything we can to stop moving in that direction. And I feel like this administration has put the brakes on all the programs that were promoting small and local agriculture, and are just letting the big guys gobble everybody up now, and that makes me really sad. Okay, I'm getting a hint from our station manager that we need to end this conversation. But thank you so much for joining me, Robert.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. So thank you so much for joining us, and This is, again, you're listening to Common Sense Matters. This is a program for the Franklin County Democratic Party. I wanted to let everybody know that on Saturday, June 14th, we're going to be having a demonstration against the Trump administration's policies. It's going to be from 12:30 till 2, and we're going to be on the corner of South College Street and 2nd Avenue, right across the street from the Franklin County Board of Education in that parking lot. So if you are upset about things happening in the Trump administration, such as what we just talked about, cutting SNAP, cutting USDA funding, making things hard on small farmers, come and show up and show that you don't agree with this. So this is called the No Kings Day March. It's happening all across the country. There'll be marches in Chattanooga, Nashville, Winchester, probably Tullahoma. So show up and make your voice heard. All sorts of scientific research is being cut that will help us. So that's Saturday, June 14th. On the corner of South College Street and 2nd Avenue, pretty close to the square, and it's from 12:30 to 2. We hope that y'all can show up for that. The Franklin County Democratic Party meets every fourth Tuesday of the month at the Franklin County Annex, so please join us. And you can also look us up at our website, which is Franklin County, Tennessee Democraticparty.com. So it's a long word, Franklin County, Tennessee, all spelled out, Democraticparty.com. And we're on Facebook, Franklin County TN Democratic Party, and we're on Instagram, FCTN Democratic Party. So please look us up, and thank you so much for listening today. Y'all have a great day.